I wonder what will happen to us, to people like you and me, when there are finally no more wars to occupy us.
Hi everyone, I'm Johnny, and today we're taking a look at the last episode of Band of Brothers titled Points. But there's never really a last episode, is there? If you're like me, you might rewatch the miniseries every 4 or 5 years. Anyway, let's take a look at this excellent ending to this beautiful miniseries. Episode 10 is the one episode where you might just be jealous of the men of Easy Company. The 101st Airborne will celebrate VE Day, or Victory in Europe Day, in Berchtesgaden, May 8, 1945. Starting May 3, 1945, Easy Company are racing several other units, including the French 2nd Armored Division, to capture Nazi Germany's prized picturesque Alpine retreat. The area was famous for lavish homes where head Nazis vacationed and met with heads of state, including British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, just before the war. Easy Company arrived May 5th along with several other units, including the French. They had just been beaten by elements of the 7th Infantry Regiment of the 3rd Infantry Division, who arrived one day earlier. Despite this, the town still had enough souvenirs to go around, with the Nazi vacation town largely vacant. Winters himself wasn't immune to the looting that took place, and he knew this was the one place you were certain only to be looting from dedicated Nazis. Winters mailed back to the United States at least 24 trophy weapons. Situated further up the mountains from Berchtesgaden was the Obersalzberg, where Hitler, Martin Bormann, Albert Speer, and Hermann Goering had homes. Even higher was the Eagle's Nest, Hitler's chalet, a sort of lavish diplomatic reception house. These homes were filled with not just souvenirs, but fine food, and the finest wines available to humanity, the largest store of which was kept in Goering's cellars. Easy Company and each company of 2nd Battalion would celebrate with their own truckload of alcohol from Goering's collection. What isn't shown here is just how chaotic this celebration was, which reportedly included the destruction of a significant amount of property, including at least one of Goering's luxury Mercedes cars, shot up and destroyed by none other than Captain Spears. Easy Company would next enter Zell am See, Austria, where they would become an occupation force with the war in Europe officially over. One of the more powerful scenes shown here is Winters accepting a surrender from a German colonel.
I wonder what will happen to us, to people like you and me, when there are finally no more wars to occupy us.
The scene was inspired by a true event where an officer surrendered a Walther PPK to Winters, which Winters kept. It was very symbolic for him as the weapon was never fired, never used in war or anger, and he wanted to preserve the gun in such a state. Despite this scene being fiction, it's still powerful as it gives a fantastic juxtaposition. The German officer is a true product of 19th and 20th century Prussian and German militarism. He was likely raised in a military family with his life's purpose, war. Winters, however, was a stoic officer, driven by the need to be effective, to save his men, and return to them peace as safely as possible. This stoic professionalism is further reinforced in the episode when Winters attempts to be transferred immediately to Japan. He meets Major General Elbridge Chapman with the 13th Airborne Division, in line to go to Japan. Chapman turns his transfer request down, telling him he has done enough in service of his country. Winters wrote that his main motivation to go was that he believed his experience would save lives. He also suspected Colonel Sink may have sabotaged the interview with Chapman, perhaps to protect him and keep him with his men. Occupation for Easy Company overall was no picnic. Germany was in chaos, there were food shortages, and millions of displaced people. Shown here is a German military police officer, distinguished by the gorget around his neck. The Americans needed help from thousands of German soldiers to help with the occupation. Some soldiers were able to go home based on the point system initiated just after VE Day. Most soldiers needed 85 points to go home. Soldiers received 1 point for each month of military service, and 1 additional point for each month of overseas service. A battle star, or Purple Heart, was 5 points. Soldiers collected 12 points per dependent child at home, up to 3 children. Lotteries were also sometimes established where long-serving distinguished men might win the chance to be sent home. Daryl Shifty Powers, beloved by Easy Company, won this one. As described in the show, he was injured in an automobile accident on his way home, but he lived until 2009. One dramatic incident during the occupation shown in the episode is the shooting of Staff Sergeant Grant by Private Floyd Craver. Craver had been out drinking and smoking marijuana. Craver was with another GI and a hired German civilian driver. At some point, their car ran out of gas. Subsequently, a vehicle stopped to help them, driven by a surrendered German officer, Edward Altacker, who was wearing a white armband, but still armed lawfully with a pistol. Craver tried to seize Altacker's pistol, and Altacker attempted to drive away. Craver decided to shoot at the car, killing him. Later in the night, a passing British Major R.G. Watkin stopped to investigate Craver's vehicle. Sergeant Grant also stopped shortly after to investigate, with Craver shooting at Grant's vehicle while it was in motion. Grant tried to de-escalate the situation and seize Craver's weapon, but was shot in the head, followed by the shooting and killing of the British Major. Craver was found guilty at a court-martial and ordered to serve a life sentence. It's unknown just how long he served, but he died a free man in 1987. Often evidence was poorly collected and handled in these situations, and many retrials struggled to reobtain testimony or evidence from overseas. Grant survived his head wound, though suffered from some minor deficiencies, such as the occasional speech problem and a partially paralyzed left arm. He lived until 1984. Despite this dark event, the series does end with not one, but two profound denouement moments. Firstly, the speech from the German general. It's a very clever way to sum up Easy Company's experience, while humanizing the enemy, who no doubt shared similar struggles. Secondly, despite the heavy British thespian influence, the series is a great American war masterpiece, so it's only fitting the series should end with a baseball game, focusing on some of the individual soldiers.
Sie alle verdienen ein langes und glückliches Leben in Frieden.
We deserve long and happy lives in peace.
All right, I'm Johnny. Thanks so much for watching. It was a great pleasure for me to revisit this series as a YouTuber for what is probably my 6th watch through. I want to dedicate this video to my dear old dad, who first introduced me to the series in 2001. I love you, Dad. Do take care, and have a nice rest of your day.